This is really about being free to create what you want your life to look like. We each are our own hero. And how do we take the challenges that come our way and see those as the birth process of us becoming heroic? Can you meet that judgment that ultimately will surface with neutrality?
This is the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim Ann Curtin.
Aloha, everybody. Just a quick reminder that I have a free ebook for you if you go to traderdiscipline.com. The name of the free ebook that I'm gifting my listeners is Discipline and Finding Your Edge. Now enjoy this amazing interview and the gems that Brice Foose drops. I think you're going to really like this conversation. Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the Wall Street Coach Podcast. I'm very excited today to have Brice Foose on my podcast. Brice and I met, about 2 months ago at Brian Lee's wedding. And we had some fun Uber rides with our friend Andres across what was that area? The San Jose?
San Jose, yeah.
San Jose area. And there were some amazing conversations with Uber drivers about their relationship to crypto. And I think I just fell for you then, Brice. I was like, had such a great sense of humor. You were asking really important questions to these guys. You were trying to be a contribution to them. Unfortunately, they didn't all see that was a benefit to them. In fact, one of them kicked us out of our Uber, our Jack in the Box, because he was so upset about Brice's, thoughts on crypto. So how are you, Brice? Welcome to my podcast.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
So Brice has an amazing bio that I do want to read right from the get-go. He grew up in Central Illinois, and he started at CVS as a pharmacy technician when he was a senior in high school, and he went on to pharmacy school, graduated in 2013. While in pharmacy school, towards the end of his curriculum in 2011, he discovered trading and became more and more active each year. And in January 2019, he started trading for 7 Points Capital. Now that he's been trading for them ever since. And he currently lives in St. Louis with his amazing wife, who I had the good fortune to meet also at the wedding, and his 2 boys. So welcome, Brice, and thank you for coming here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about your, kind suggestions or inquiring questions to those Uber drivers, just because it felt like you really were trying to be a contribution. And I also heard your curiosity in those conversations. You were genuinely curious. And everybody had such a robust answer. Mostly the woman. She was the best crypto player, wasn't she?
Yeah.
The woman Uber driver. We must have 5 Uber drivers. I think you paid for all those Ubers, so thank you.
We got several Ubers that night. Trying to run around San Jose was quite an experience. To be honest, I don't know a ton about crypto. I've never. Me as a trader, I try to trade what I know, or what I think I know and understand. And, crypto to me is a little bit foreign. So whether it's going to go up or down, I really have no clue. So I think just me, myself, I'm a pretty curious person anyway. And then mix a few drinks in that day. And we had some interesting conversations with the Uber drivers, right? So it's just interesting to see kind of the thoughts and, it was just kind of interesting to see what their thinking was and kind of the strategies and how they've done it overall. Might as well use that time wisely while you're an Uber. You're not doing much else. So
exactly. I think what I enjoyed about it the most is that everybody, including the man on the street or the Uber driver, has an opinion. And actually, some people have a really amazingly informed opinion. And we got to see that night just kind of the trading mindset of the average person.
Yep.
Like that guy that got mad at you or mad at us, he clearly personalizes his trading.
Yes.
right? Because he felt his ego was hit. And
Right.
I was like, wow, like he's super sensitive
Yes.
over this conversation and his choice or his mistake or his not mistake. Like, and then that was what was so fascinating, because I felt we got to see, even though these people aren't professional traders, we got to see a real diversity of the relationship people have to themselves and their trading. That's what was fascinating to me.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like that guy you kind of referred to. It's interesting to see the kind of emotions that come out, when you're asking certain types of questions. And that's kind of the same thing in trading. Like a lot of times you're taking advantage of other people's emotions. So it's kind of a good way to gauge, how they're going to react in certain situations, whether it's in the market or in life or, just in general.
Exactly. So because of that curiosity, I'm very interested. How does your own curiosity serve you as a trader?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, even, trading since 2011, that even I still have nights where I'm like, man, I wonder what this stock was, or even if it's something I never traded, or maybe, I'm curious in how things work, especially in the market. Why are things moving? Is there a way I can maybe replicate that in the future? And I think most traders that get to a good level probably have that kind of curiosity about them. Because that's kind of how it started for me, and then it's just grown, and that's how I've got better. Just being curious and wanting to find out reasons why, and then look for kind of repeatable patterns from that curiosity. Basically, is kind of how it all came about, really.
Yeah. How do you sustain? I think the most important piece of curiosity is neutrality. They
Yeah.
have to go kind of hand in hand. How do you sustain that neutrality for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of an honest view of yourself. Is like, I don't really know about, there's a lot of different things in the market. I don't know. So, I'm curious to find out, reasons why, and then, ideally look for ways I can profit off that in the future. I think over time, years and years of doing that, you develop just kind of a second nature of kind of pattern recognition, basically, to where, that way you can use those things that you found to profit from.
Yeah. What's your style of trading, if you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because this year's been completely different, but I'm mainly in small cap space. I like to focus on biotech, but I'll definitely trade other sectors, specifically within small caps. Yeah, that's my main focus. I'm really usually focused on supply, demand, and balances, which in the small cap area can be pretty obvious. There's a lot of different things that go into that, but yeah, that's kind of been my focuses. Biotech, just with pharmacy, I feel like I can understand the news. It gives me a little bit of an edge there. Now, whether or not the stock agrees with my thesis is completely different, but I'm looking at price action number one, and then I kind of have my own thesis in my head, but when I can put the two together, then that's when I can really do well.
Yeah.
So mainly small caps on the short side for the most part. I do some long kind of catalyst swing trading in biotech. If I have, maybe there's an FDA approval date a few months out, or some kind of big binary event, and I'm looking basically for anticipatory buying to come in, and then I'm looking for mainly like a hard set date to where I get out before. In a lot of markets, a lot of years it's worked great. Currently with biotech, with the worst sell-off that it's like XBI has had since the inception of the index, obviously not much is going to work. So a lot of it right now is just playing defense, to be honest.
Yeah.
And just waiting to see when the market heats back up. But the good thing about, obviously it sucks going through kind of a sell-off like that if you have some decent positions. But the beauty of it is it's going to reset everything to where, once it turns back on and we get more of a risk on environment, things start moving, I'm gonna be ready to really capitalize on that next move up. So,
Yeah.
Goes in cycles. So I've been through a lot of them. This one's been unlike anything I've ever been through, but you learn and you grow. And if I can take the information learned from this year and kind of these sell-offs and things and implement in the future, then I'll be able to really benefit from it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And for the audience, it's May 18th, 2022, that we're lucky enough to talk to Brice. Brice, how did trading begin for you?
Yeah, so I was in pharmacy school. We did a lot of group work, and I had a friend that he was in a couple of my group projects, and he was into it. And there was one day, I remember, I don't think I'll ever forget this day, but he basically, we were sitting there and the group work got done, and he said, well, my stocks did pretty good today. And I kind of looked over his laptop and I was like, well, what are you into? And so he started telling me a few things, a couple stocks he was in. And about a week later, I had a little Scott trade account, and I had bought, one stock, and I just kept kind of reading articles about different biotechs, and it kind of grew and grew from there. I joined a service towards the end of 2012 that was focused on biotechs and kind of catalyst run-ups, stuff like that. And it kind of resonated with me because I was in pharmacy school, and I was kind of on top of the information of some of the drugs. And so it just kind of made sense for me. And then I just kind of kept dabbling in different strategies and evolving from then. That's kind of how it went.
Yeah. And I was so excited to learn that you're still a pharmacist. And I wonder, having that ability to have two revenue streams, one from your trading and one as a pharmacist, that I imagine is such a benefit. Tell me what you experience having that flexibility.
That's a great question. So let's see, most of my, so I managed a pharmacy. I was pharmacy manager at CVS for 6 years, from 2014 to 2012, or 2014 to 2020. And as a manager, I can kind of dictate my schedule. It was a 24-hour store. So the majority of my hours were nights and weekends, evenings and weekends. So like weekends, I do 7 to 7 both days. So boom, there's 24 hours, right? So that way, towards the end, I would work Monday 2 to 9. I have Tuesday, Wednesday off. So, and it's Central Time Zone. So market closes at 3. So those first 3 days the market's open, I literally only missed 1 hour. I'm still working full time.
Wow.
So that allowed me to, obviously it's pretty busy, juggling different things, but as a trader, it's going to take a long time to really figure it out to be profitable. Unfortunately, I mean, that's the harsh reality. Twitter is a kind of a different animal if you look at some of those things, but the reality is it's going to take years. And whether you got a support stream from your parents or, some other thing, you're going to need some sort of financial backing to get you through until you can start making some consistent money, and then even through the bad times. And to be honest, still, if I have a bad week, I will maybe pick up a shift that weekend just to make sure that, I got a little money coming in, because I'm not a firm believer if you've, like people say, I've made it. I don't know if you've ever really made it in trading. For me, how would you calculate how much money you need throughout your whole life with inflation and kids and stuff? I mean, it could be an incredible amount, right? And it's absolutely achievable in trading with an unlimited potential of income, but you never know if you take a bad loss, or if we have a year like this year and it's completely slow for some of your strategies to kind of dry up for a while. And then you throw 2 kids in the mix, kind of like I mentioned, and some of this inflation, and it's like, damn, I got to make sure I got some income coming in at all times. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in multiple revenue streams, even if trading is 99.9%
Yep.
Of it,
Yep.
it's good to always have something to fall back on.
For sure.
Because I think, regardless of how elite the trader may be or what they've been able to accomplish in the past, you're still going to go through times where you're like, damn, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make any money at all. And it's just, the reality is it's not really true, but, there's going to be opportunities that come around, realistically. But in the trader's head, and most of them, even probably the best I talk to still struggle with it, and some of them are set for life, but they're just like, well, who knows how long it's going to last with inflation and stuff. And how do you calculate how much money you're going to need for 50, 60 years, right?
Right.
There's no way to really know. So, but yeah, no, it's, it helps a lot, my mindset, even if it's a small amount of money in terms of, something to fall back on, if I do a kind of a short Sunday shift, but it also gives me a good sense of balance to where, I can go, and regardless of the paycheck, like I'm still able to help people, use my knowledge, and, it's something totally different. It gets me out of the house, interaction with people. I'm a little rusty. I'm not like I used to be in terms of a pharmacist when I was doing it, 40, 50 hours a week, but, I can still do pretty good, I feel like. But
I feel like your ability to be trading when you're trading just becomes even more pronounced when you have your intellect stimulated in other ways.
yes.
Right? So
Yeah.
talk about that, because I do feel some traders, they're just so all in. There isn't like this freshness or reset ability because they never fully let themselves have spaciousness outside of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, say I'll work a Sunday and I'll kind of forget about the market completely when I'm at work, whether or not I'm too busy to think about it, or or it can just kind of shut off in my mind a little bit. And then it's almost like, man, it's kind of crazy I trade, because then I do this, and then you get back on Monday and it's just like, I feel like once you've done it for, so long, it's like that bell rings and it's just like second nature just kind of takes over. For me, I trade a lot on instinct at this point, based on, all the thousands and thousands of hours of screen time and review sessions for myself, and trades that have worked, and just things I continue to go over and over. It's just like, at this point, a lot of it's second nature, and instinct. If I see, XYZ happen and this happened, the price action, I'm in right away. Right. I just understand probabilities. I think a lot of probabilities in my head, and just that, pattern recognition, and, here's my entry, here's my stop. Either it's going to work or it's not.
Yep.
Ideally it works, but I understand a lot of times it's not going to work.
Yep. And that emotional neutrality as you trade, I'm just curious too, if you came into trading with that, or have you developed that over time?
Yeah, I feel like I've always been a pretty patient person. So that helps. And I don't know if, I think that's a kind of a personality trait that you, either you have or you don't. You can definitely work on it in trading, but if you're a really nervous, anxious person that's just not very patient, it's going to be tough to change that in trading. And so, basically you just have to have a trading style that suits that personality. But for me, I've always been pretty patient in life, and it definitely translates into my trading. I think for the most part, especially in the last 2 years, it's been a huge benefit. Now this year, to be honest, there's a lot of trades that's been a detriment. Patience has killed me this year, really. Just with the lack of follow through. So I've basically tried to tone that down a little bit, but I'm careful because I when a good environment comes back, I don't want to completely change.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to kind of think of ways to change and adapt a little bit, but I'm careful because I know what really, really works in the correct environment. I don't want to change and kind of get away from my core competencies that really kind of bring home the bacon, right? So,
Yep.
so it's been interesting.
You're very self-aware, Brice, and that I think is just one of the greatest strengths a trader can have. Is this self-awareness also a trait of yours, or have you seen it develop as you've been on the journey of being a trader?
I think I've had pretty good self-awareness even without trading, but I've definitely worked on it with my trading in terms of, like, say I'm in a position, it's just like I'm emotional. Well, why am I emotional? Like, do I not think this is going to work? Am I too big a size? Am I afraid I'm going to lose? What's causing this? So I've kind of done that, especially kind of earlier in my career, to kind of check my emotions and really kind of dig deeper of why I'm feeling the way I am. To where when things are going well, I'm pretty steady. One of my big goals this year was actually, which has gone terrible, but to not really let a red or green day affect my mood. Like, I want to just be to where you can't really tell. Now, when you're used to doing pretty good last year and do not do the same this year, and your goal was to grow, well, then that's going to be a tough goal to make. So it's something I'm working on. It would help if the environment's a little bit better. But it's a work in progress, I guess.
Or the universe just thinks you're up to a really big challenge.
It's a challenge for sure. Never ending challenge. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Lucas, you had some questions, I know.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd like to go back to, you talked a lot about instinct and, especially, and I'm wondering for you, when did you start to realize that you had that instinct and kind of, weren't consciously even, I'm sure you're conscious, right? But
Sure.
weren't like really figuring out where your entries and exits need to be, but more, like you said, just when did that instinct develop and start trusting it?
That's a good question. I'd say maybe middle 19, I feel like I started to notice it.
Oh, wow.
At least in my intraday trading.
Yeah.
I was pretty active like through 2014 to 2018, but really picked it up in 2019, I guess, to where, since I'm trading for a firm, it's a little, way more professional. I was active every day then too, but it was kind of a different kind of activeness, I guess. But there's some days, you have a good day and it's like, damn, how did I even do that? It's, not sounding cocky or anything, but realistically, I'm like, man, I don't know. It's just like my mind, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like I kind of just react, right? Just because you've seen it over and over so many times, and you just get in this flow state. And then when the market and price action agrees, it's just it's just game time, right? So it's hard to explain, I guess, but I'd say maybe middle of 2019, and then I really kind of started doubling down on my review process around then, maybe towards the end of 2019, to really basically just increase my size and what really works, where and why does it work, where can I, how much size can I put on, and where would my stop be, and so I constantly would review each night, and that's what really kind of propelled me. So yeah, I mean, it took a long time to develop that instinct. It took a while to realize it, like you said, but yeah, I mean, now it's kind of just automatic. It's a lot of them, if I see something that I really like, I'm in, really, I mean, there's no second guessing. I'm in, right? I'm not going to miss it. So, but yeah, I would say it takes a lot of time to develop something like that.
Yeah.
Follow up?
I guess what, one thing I think that gets overlooked a lot, at least in the trading community, and especially like you said on Twitter, is like how long it takes. And if I'm doing the math right, like for you, that's like 8 years, right? Before you started really trusting it, or at least when you very first started, maybe, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, different strategies here and there throughout the years. And then you kind of, Well, it depends on the trader, but I mean, for me, I kind of found some things that really resonated with me personally and my personality. And things like that I saw a lot of growth and potential in, and that repeatedly happened. And so that's kind of the way it worked for me. But yeah, I mean, they really estimate 10,000 hours to master a skill. Trading is probably one of the toughest skills to master, I would say.
Well, it's really like 3 or 4 skills put into one, I think.
Yeah, or 100, or 100 maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? I mean, there's obviously just so many different things that go into it. And I get, it depends on what you trade too, but there's, regardless of what you trade, there's just so many different nuances and things to kind of take into account, variables. I'd like to say, there may be like a small cap trade, but I'm thinking of literally 20 to 30 different variables that can affect this trade, and they all kind of come together to kind of determine how good of a setup it is. But yeah, a long time to develop that. But it was a goal of mine to kind of get there. And finally we did that. So, but I'm still, obviously it's never an ending battle, because, obviously there's going to be some environments where my instinct is completely wrong, right? It's just not the right environment. So then you got to, through your nightly review, you got to kind of learn how to maybe adapt a little bit, but then still kind of keep your core competencies for when it kind of heats back up again.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to put 2 questions on you. You can answer both or just one of them. Have there been mentors along the way that have really helped you grow and helped you stretch yourself, and or how do you suggest people go about finding those mentors for themselves?
Yeah. So I've definitely had several different people, I'd say, that were influential throughout my trading career. A lot, and many for different reasons, whether it be, one guy's just really good at managing risk, or, one guy is just so massive that he makes me want to get way bigger too. Or, it's just a lot of different things. But so I'd say throughout the years I've had, I don't have, I guess, one go-to that I would say, this guy is the reason why I'm here. What I would try to do when I was especially when I was younger, is I joined a lot of the chat rooms, a lot of the subscription services. And my goal was to take maybe 1 to 2 things that this guy does well and see if I can implement it into something I do. And there's some that it just doesn't. Like, what worked for them may not work for you. And it's just the way trading works. Like, it just doesn't resonate with your personality, right?
Yep.
But that was like, even let's say you pay, $5,000 for a course, several years back or something like that. But if you can take one thing from them and implement it in, 30 years of trading, that's pays way over, right? So that was kind of my goal, is, especially I was learning, to take a few things from this guy, a few things from that guy. What does this guy do well? What does this guy do that I don't want to do? Things like that.
It's fabulous. Sounds like you were very aware of how you were going to go into this. So there were going to be some that were in alignment with you, that you might get 1 or 2 things, and then some who just were not going to speak in the language that you knew you had to talk in. That just feels, again, like just a lot of wisdom going into those rooms, where I, on occasion have heard traders just kind of surrender to the guru and not own it themselves. It's like, well, he said, or what are you doing? And it's just like, hey.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always aware that, well, first, I think I always had a bigger picture in mind. I still do. So, starting out, like, I didn't really want to go into somewhere and follow alerts, because, how long is this person going to be giving out alerts? Like, I want to process that I can do on my own, right? I want to kind of fish on my own. So, I think a lot of traders probably look for that, or look for, to be spoon fed. But the reality is, even if the trader, is so good and can give you trades, depending on your personality, you may not be able to operate the same way. And there's probably no way, right? I mean, there's no real, probably two traders that trade the same. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking for things that I can implement on my own, taking things like that. And, I really did not want to be spoon fed at all, because I'm aware that, that service could shut down at any moment. And then what are you going to do? Right. So you need to kind of just develop your own process and take those things from those services, if they're offering some good things, or, whatever resources you have, and then kind of mold them into your own best practices.
Yeah, for sure. I suspect that I could be wrong, but that a lot of those who do want that spoon fed are looking for the cash and grab. They can come in and get out and make their money and be done. Or that was the mindset in a little, I think over the last 2 years, especially.
Yes.
But for those who realize that's not going to give them the runway for for the rest of their life, like it's a long, if you really are looking at this as a long tail game, then you got to be thinking 5, 10, 20 years down the line.
Right.
And that sounds like you got that right at the get-go when you came into this.
I mean, I always had kind of, even like, let's say 2012, 2013, 2014, I'm thinking more, 30 years down the line. I do think that, unless it's a humongous outlier year in a trader's career, if you have, let's say you trade for 30 years, I think you could even probably say 1 year would be insignificant, unless you blow up. Obviously that's going to be significant, and maybe you have some just huge outlier years that just really pave the way for the future. But I think for the most part, a lot of it, if you think about a long-term career, you could even kind of write off a year and just say it, is that really that significant if you think, long-term? So.
Yep. Really, really powerful. What do you wish you learned fresh out of the gate sooner when you first began?
That's a good question. I think, you don't know what you don't know, right? And, the biggest thing, the market doesn't give a shit what you know or what you think, right? That there's going to be some crazy things that happen that make absolutely no sense. And the biggest thing you can do is just manage your own risk. So that's that. The other part of that is you can have some great traders say that to a new trader, but somebody, like me, I got to find out for myself, right? So most traders are probably going to kind of, you're in trading because you kind of challenge the status quo, right? So that mindset, you're going to kind of challenge some things that are said, even, even the greatest traders might tell you, right? But when you learn those lessons for yourself, regardless of whatever somebody tells you, then that's when it really burns deep, to where that's when you start implementing some hardcore rules, basically because pain that's been caused in the, in the past. Most good traders have good rules, and why do they have those rules? Because they probably had a bad experience to implement that rule, and whether or not they want to talk about it, that's where rules come from. So that's the reality of it.
Well said. Well said. What would be your advice to those that are more experienced, more sophisticated traders, but perhaps haven't been in the game as long as you have? What would your advice to them be in this current mayhem and volatility?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there are times, which I'm actually learning myself currently, but there are times in a trader's career where it's kind of about survival. There's everybody's going to go through drawdowns. I think a big thing that I've learned prop trading is, how do you control the drawdowns and losses? Like the reality is you're going to have some losses. Some are going to be bigger than others. There's going to be, periods of weeks, a couple weeks or a month. Maybe you have maybe a quarter. It's rough, but those that can survive and limit losses and know when to kind of step back, those are ones that when the environment heats up, then you can press the pedal, right?
Mhm.
Even if you press the pedal a little lighter than you wanted to at first, but then, gradually as it continues to get better and better, you can work your way back up. So, I mean, I think would be kind of my advice now, which is advice that's been given to me from the firm, is just like, trader's career, it's not just a parabolic equity curve, right? There's going to be some dips, ideally it's still trending up, but there's going to be some times where, maybe you consolidate a little bit. And to be honest, I don't really like consolidating. I want to continue to go up, but as I'm learning now, I think it's important to keep losses small. And, for me, I've sized down quite a bit. A big loss now with my current lock is nothing I would ever care about in the past year. But the ability to make it back is completely different. Fall through the volatility and stuff that I trade personally is just the opportunities is not there, and it'll be back. I'm confident it will. I've always been through slow periods. It's just, this has been an extremely prolonged slow period. And it could be just, because it's been two crazy hot years, but even before then, I mean, there's been opportunities in, 2013 through 2019, there were opportunities, a lot of them, every month, really, I feel like. And now this is kind of slowing down a lot, but it's a different world. There's a war going on, and, we're talking recession, and, realistically, when some of these prices are going up, and I think about people that have normal jobs, when I look at, some of my credit card bills from the grocery store, and I'm like, man, I don't know how some of these people are doing it. So, if all this money is going to all this inflation, is there going to be a bunch of money coming into the market? Definitely not from retail, right? I mean, that stimulus check is gone, and, credit card bills probably racking up to where, at some point something's got to give. But yeah, I mean, back to your question, I think the biggest advice is there's kind of some periods of time and in a trader's career, it's about survival. I've never been to one that just says, "Oh, I'm all cash. I'm not trading. I'm not pressing the button." No, I'm here to make money. What do you? You're not going to make any money by being all cash, but some people may be able to time it correctly, but on the way down, if you're trying to buy a dip or something like that, especially like, XBI kind of things I'm talking about, like, there's going to be some times I'm going to go for it. All right. And sometimes I'm going to be wrong, and that's part of the game. Yeah. But yeah. Does that kind of answer your question?
Does. It really does. Answered a lot of questions. Lucas, any last thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I guess kind of maybe a similar follow-up to that. You mentioned earlier, like, one of the things that you felt kind of propelled your career was really doubling down on review. And I'm wondering if you feel like, is that, like the thing that you felt like really did it for you, or were there other things, and is that something you would, maybe recommend to people that are, have a review process, but maybe haven't really dug into figuring out what that is?
Yeah, that's a good question that you asked, because Lance just posted a pretty good tweet of what's the best way to get better at trading, and actually responded and put screen time. So I'm going to say both. So regardless of your review process, you're going to have thousands and thousands of hours of screen time. If you have a mentor or somebody that's incredibly good that kind of resonates with you, it can definitely speed that up. If you're at a firm that, and have some good guys around you, I think that can speed it up for sure. But screen time is extremely important. It's just going to take a long time to just kind of really be able to develop a feel. I understand there's kind of some data guys that, they put everything in Excel and they say, all right, probability, it's 30% it's going to work, or, or whatever. But, even a lot of those guys, they've had a ton of screen time. But yeah, I mean, the review process is extremely important. There's all types of various ways to do it. And I think it really, different people learn in different ways. Some people may be good at, just visual learning. And I kind of feel like I have kind of a photographic memory to where I can remember charts from years ago. I mean, what the intraday looked like, what my trades were like. I mean, I don't know, just kind of the way my mind works. I don't know how long it's going to work, but for now it works well. But yeah, so for me, a lot of my reviews is visual. I mean, I'm just looking at charts, reviewing my executions. Some of the trades is not much to say, right? It just, this stock did this, I entered here, I did what I wanted, I covered, is it. But I'd still kind of go back and say, okay, how good of a setup was this? Why was it this? Was there some sort of supply and demand imbalance that just was so good that I need to be, maybe 5x next time? Or, did I really underperform on this ticker? So I kind of really try to dive deep into them and, try to think critically and try to take something away from each trade, really, at the review process, which, some obviously there's not much to take away. Like it didn't work, right? If you have a high win rate, let's say 60-70%, there's going to be, some that just don't work for whatever reason. You can maybe work to identify those reasons, but regardless, there's going to be some days just things don't work. And so it's just kind of, you got to grow to accept that, which is easier said than done sometimes. But yeah, was that kind of your question, like in terms of the review process, stuff like that?
Yeah. And if there was anything else that you felt like really propelled your career, but besides like screen time and review.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say review process is probably the main thing for me in terms of how I've propelled it. But then kind of my attitude in my review processing, I think is key too, because, it's not really a session to where you kind of beat yourself up, right? It's more of a objective view of, this is what happened. You can't go back and change it. There's no reason to be pissed off, at night. I feel like in pharmacy school, for example, like kind of the best learning that takes place is kind of right before you go to sleep. So what I would do after class is I would study a little bit and then take a little nap. And then I would study until I go to bed, and then make sure I'm studying like before I go to bed and then go to bed. So kind of translate that to now to where actually I review right before I go to bed. So I come back in the office, whatever time it is, kids are in bed. And then I review then. And sometimes it may be, 10, 15 minutes, but, other times if I'm pissed off about my performance, I'll stare at a chart for a while and think, what ways can I do this better next time? Especially if it's a mistake that just continues to happen, what kind of things, is this maybe a ticker I need to put on the do not trade list, or, is there maybe a different approach I can take to something like this? Things like that. It's kind of things I focus on.
Yeah, it's amazing. Brice, this was amazing. Lance is coming on our podcast because of you.
Awesome. Good to hear. Looking forward to that one.
Yep, it should be good. But what an incredible conversation this was. You're so forthright, you're so self-aware, and you're generous and you're funny. So a pretty good combo there, man. And I hope that you'll come back on in the future. Any parting words, anything you want to just say that we didn't address or speak to?
I think we covered a lot. I don't have kind of anything.
Questions I didn't ask you that I should have?
Yeah, not that I can really think of. I think we, had a good conversation. So I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to kind of giving it a re-listen and see how it turned out. But yeah, I'm pleased with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And we'll see everybody on the next episode of the Wall Street Coach. Aloha for now.
This is the Wall Street Coach podcast with Kim Ann Curtin. You can download Kim's free ebook, Discipline and Finding Your Edge, at traderdiscipline.com. And learn more about working with Kim and her team at thewallstreetcoach.com. And if you're feeling generous, please leave a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening.